Welcome to Creatively Christian, a podcast by Theophany Media, where we inspire, inform, educate, and empower creative Christians of all types. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Hollingsworth. Philip Kosloski is the founder of Voyage Comics. Today, Philip describes to Bill about how he creates his comics to be uniquely Catholic.
Hello and welcome to Creatively Christian. I'm your host, Bill Brooks. We are bringing you another creative Christian. Please welcome to the show, Philip Kosloski. Hi, Phil. How are you?
Hello. Doing well. How are you?
Good. Philip is a writer and founder of Voyage Comics and Publishing, founded in 2018. He creates positive, faith-based entertainment formed by Catholic values. So welcome to Creatively Christian.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
So were you always writing stories when you were a child? Since you can remember, when did you start writing stories, faith-based stories?
Sure. Well, it actually started more recently. So it's one of those things where, growing up, I kind of had this idea of what I wanted to do. But then as I started to kind of pray and discern about it, I discovered, kind of God was leading me in a different direction. And one of the things that I was, trying to discern is, how to best use the gifts that God has given me. And I went through this process where I kind of discovered that writing for me was something that was easy, relatively easy for me, but that also that I was good at. And I hadn't really explored that very much, as a child, or, not even, not in high school or even in college, really. I didn't really think about it. But then as I started to write more, I felt a lot of peace about it. And so initially I started just writing more spirituality type articles on, on prayer. And, kind of as that became more or less successful, and I, ended up kind of getting a job where I wrote, spirituality articles for a living. Then I kind of wanted to, I guess, take it to the next level and to start to tell stories. And, I guess you could say it's every kind of, writer's dream to kind of write a novel or, some sort of, piece of fiction. And for me, though, I kind of, it's one of those things where I started kind of writing, stories, but then it just wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't clicking for me. I was just had a lot of obstacles to doing it. But then I was kind of thinking, well, one way to communicate stories is to do so in a visual way. And so I kind of was thinking, well, how can I do that? And I kind of wanted to do it in a more popular way. So then I thought, well, comic books is a kind of a neat medium. It's very, kind of the whole comic books are really popular nowadays, with Marvel,
Yep.
DC, and all the movies that they've been turning out, and their comics have also been kind of been getting a resurgence recently. And so I started to kind of look into that. And yeah, go ahead.
Were you into comics when you were a kid, or?
A little bit, yeah. I didn't collect comics like some people do. I did have, a handful of comics and was always kind of fascinated by them. And so I also, the original idea that I had, I just knew it would work well in a kind of a visual medium. And so and kind of what kind of encouraged me, I guess, is I kind of, so I had this blog on my personal website, and I kind of reached out to my email subscribers, saying like I had this idea of making these kind of Christian comic books. What do you think of it? And I got some positive feedback, and then I had one of my readers said, well, I know someone who works for Marvel Comics, and he's been
awesome.
working with them for the past 30 years. But he's also a faithful Christian, and and so I got connected with him, and then I got connected with some other artists, and kind of every step of the way, things have been falling into place. And so I kind of found that as God kind of leading me in the right direction.
That sounds like it.
That, so yeah, that's kind of, it started, kind of in 2017 is when I kind of first was having this idea, and then we made our first comic book, and originally it was just going to be kind of one, but then as things fell into place, I just kind of realized, well, we could make this into a series, and now it's a company. So
awesome. So your books and your comics include Finnian and the Seven Mountains, which is a series, The Mission of Joan of Arc, The Tale of Patrick Payne, Jonah's Voyage to Atlantis. I don't remember reading about that in the Bible, by the way. Or did I? So first question is, who is Patrick Payne without any spoilers?
Sure. So that particular comic book, we were hired by this this religious organization to kind of look at this founder of their organization, and he's this Catholic priest who was actually really big in Hollywood in the 1950s and 60s, and he's really a fascinating priest. He gave, oddly enough, a lot of actors their first start. So I mean, like William Shatner and James Dean, and even George Lucas. During this time frame, because he was doing these religious videos at the time, and hired these these new kids on the block, which at the time they were nobodies, but then it turns out that they're became very successful. So yeah, so that was kind of a neat comic book to do, kind of explore his life and all the people he interacted with.
So how about Finnian and the Seven Mountains? Can you summarize that?
Sure. So Finnian, so it starts in Ireland, and part of the inspiration for that was in Star Wars, in the most recent Star Wars, Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, there's this island where Luke Skywalker is, and where they filmed it's an actual island off the coast of Ireland, and they filmed it at this Christian monastery that it's no longer in use, but it's hundreds of years old, and so kind of that's where it takes place initially. That's kind of where the base is, in this island, this Christian monastery, and then they find. And then basically, I kind of, in this series, I explore a lot of these kind of medieval legends about these different places. And, I guess you could say the general theme of the whole series is kind of spiritual warfare. So kind of bringing, you know, the battle of you know, angels and demons kind of more or less visible in a sense, like, you know, because we can't see them, but kind of just kind of playing around with the idea of, well, what if, you know, we could, and kind of
Great.
looking at some of these things, yeah, from a, I guess, medieval perspective.
And you've written a nonfiction book about Skellig Michael as well, speaking about that island.
Yep. Yeah. So, yeah.
By the way, I'm a huge Star Wars fan as well, so I feel like I've been on the island myself.
Yeah. And so kind of before I wrote the comic book series, I kind of wrote this short book called The Last Monks of Skellig Michael, and yeah, it just kind of was exploring these monks, but then also connecting them to Star Wars and the Jedi, and there's just a lot of kind of spiritual connections that I saw, and I don't know, kind of these, you know, these spiritual warriors who you know, do battle against evil, and it's just yeah, it's just very, very similar to, you know, the Jedi, the light and the dark, and yeah.
And you have T-shirts. I must mention the T-shirts. May the Lord be with you is the first one from Ruth 2:4, correct?
Yep.
And this is the way.
Mm-hmm.
So all the Star Wars fans, go. We'll talk about how to get those T-shirts later. So, so the mission of Joan of Arc. What can you tell me about Joan of Arc that is not common knowledge?
Sure. So another, the series that we did, it's a 2-issue series, but just focusing on the life of Joan of Arc. But again, you know, I kind of like to focus on, you know, kind of the spiritual aspect of it, and you know, I mean, Joan of Arc, she kind of gets, you know, I guess, criticized for hearing these voices, and, you know, questioned, like, well, did she actually hear voices, or was she kind of just crazy? And so I, you know, again, tried to kind of visually represent, kind of, you know, kind of looking at the transcripts of her trial, like kind of like the words that she said, and how she described her voices and visions, you know, because using her words, she saw Saint Michael, and so just trying to, you know, more or less take Joan at her word, and not kind of question her visions, and kind of see how that plays out in a story.
Okay, awesome. So, and let's talk about, we talked about Patrick Payne, we talked about Jonah's voyage to Atlantis. Tell me more about Atlantis. I know about Jonah.
Yeah, so this one's kind of an interesting one. You know, I wouldn't claim that it's a story based on the Bible per se. You could say it's a Jonah story. So similarly, taking inspiration from the Bible, but then also kind of, you know, looking at some of the text of what Jonah said, and in particular using this translation that was done by J.R.R. Tolkien, because he contributed one book of the Bible for the Jerusalem Bible, and he just had kind of some interesting, you know, for the most part, it's just like other translations, but then there's some verses which point to some interesting, you know, I was doing just kind of some more research about it, and there's just kind of some of these ancient Hebrew traditions around Jonah and some kind of extra biblical legends, and so I kind of wanted to explore them a little bit, and then also kind of connect it to kind of the legend of Atlantis, the city under the sea, and yeah, so I kind of take inspiration from the Bible, from these Hebrew traditions, and then from the Atlantis myth, kind of.
So am I giving away anything if I mention Tarshish?
No.
Okay, so it's speculated that Tarshish was Atlantis. Is that where we're going with this?
There's some historians have pointed to Tarshish as a possible source for like these Atlantis myths. So I mean, it's just kind of interesting how there's just all these connections, and so I mean, obviously the story that I do is not, it's just kind of taking from all these different traditions and weaving it together into a story, but still, staying true to kind of the spiritual essence of the story, so trying to get to the core of, I guess you could say, the core of the book of Jonah, but doing it with a little creative license, I guess you could say.
Okay, so these questions are under the inspire category. When did you know that you wanted to make comics? I think you already answered that. When were you inspired to make comics?
Yeah, I think, I had said that. It was maybe 4 years ago.
Okay. And that was because everybody else was reading comics and you wanted to get the message out to as many people as possible.
Yeah, I was looking for a way to communicate a story that would be easy for a wider audience. Comic books are more or less easy to pick up. Anyone can pick them up, and they're kind of less threatening than a novel.
Okay. And in what way has God provided your business more than you imagined? So another thing that I want to ask, I think you've already answered this question already. God set you up with that connection at Marvel. What's his name, by the way? What that person's name?
Jim Fern is his name.
Okay. So how many artists do you have in your operation? How many?
Well, in the comic books that we've done so far, it's been a variety. Some of them have more than others. At the core, we have, maybe 3 or 4 artists who are kind of our core members, and then we work with other ones as we need. But yeah, I mean, again, not only did I get connected with that first Marvel artist, but in the last 6 months, there was another Marvel artist who still works. Again, similar situation, faithful Christian, but just wanted to help. And so, yeah, I mean, as the business has been growing, these connections just kind of keep being made.
Amen. It's awesome. So let's educate. These questions are under the educate category. What did you not know about comic creation when you started?
Sure. Yeah, it was definitely a learning experience for me. I really didn't have any knowledge actually starting out. So I kind of tried to inform myself about it. And it's an interesting process because I write the script, and then the script then gets passed on to the initial artist, and then it's kind of, if you have a good relationship with the artist, then the artist will be able to kind of look at your script and say, this will work, this won't work. Some adjustments will need to be made. So, so kind of all along, it's definitely a team effort. After that initial idea.
So, is script writing for comics similar to movie script writing?
I would say so. Yeah, I mean it's similar. I mean, you have scene descriptions, dialogue. You just try to give the artist enough information, but you also leave him some his own ability to wiggle room to create and to kind of interpret the scene as he sees fit. So.
Mm-hmm. And what is your greatest surprise when you began a company?
Sure. I don't know. I mean, it's when you start a company, it's definitely. I mean, it's in a certain sense, it's easy for me to create a good product, but the hard part is getting it to the people.
Yeah. Distribution, you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, distribution, marketing. Yeah, kind of all of that. I mean, you can make a great product, but then you have to figure out how to get it to the people. So,
do you have a marketing expert or?
I mean, over the past year, we've kind of hired some marketing firm to help us out, and we've had mixed success. So we're still looking, I guess.
Still doing it yourself.
Yeah.
So these questions are under the empower category. How does one start from step one to create a comic book company?
Sure. Boy, well, if you want to get into the world of comic books, it's all about surrounding yourself with people who have already done it.
Wow.
I definitely, and if because when I first started writing like the first issue, and I was working with an artist who also didn't have any experience in comic books. But then once we got connected with this Marvel Comics artist, like he just kind of really changed our viewpoint and showed us, what to do. And yeah, I mean, you have to learn from people who've already done it before. Yeah, because you can think you're doing something good, but then in practicality, it's not, and it won't be successful. So,
yeah,
but other people have already done it, so you don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, good point. So, did you need a loan or crowdfunding to get the funds together to pay these people?
So yeah, so far we've kind of relied on crowdfunding, on Kickstarters, and those have been helpful. I mean, we hope, as we're able to kind of get the word out and spread the word about our company, that we'll rely less and less on crowdfunding and more just on on our own revenues.
Awesome. Be praying for that. And you've been around for 2 years, at least officially, your company. How has the pandemic affected your business?
Well, it's interestingly, it hasn't so much. Well, I guess two things. So one thing is, it really has focused our distribution to online. Because it was really not worth it for us to really go after bookstores and comic book stores or Christian bookstores, because they've been closed for a long time, and so in that sense, we weren't kind of moved away from the the physical stores just to online. But then at the same time, I mean, our team doesn't all live in the same location. We all live kind of all over the United States. And so, I mean, we do everything online, and so we just kind of keep going. It didn't really interrupt our production flow. And I guess the good thing too I guess you could say a good thing, but one thing is with the focus on online, there's e-commerce is just such a big thing this year, and so
Right.
we've been receiving a lot more orders through our online stores.
So I'm assuming you're not a brick and mortar company.
No, we don't have a central office.
Right.
But
So you don't have a studio of artists. You don't have a bullpen where people are less than 6 feet away from each other. Didn't have to send everybody home.
Nope. Yeah, so that's in a certain sense a good thing. We no matter what the situation is, everybody does their work in their own home. So being at home doesn't matter because that's where the work happens anyway.
Right, exactly. So where did you find your staff? Do you hire your people one at a time as things
progress?
I mean,
the initial artist who his name is Michael Lavoie, who kind of came on at the very beginning. He was kind of a mutual friend, lives somewhat nearby to where I live. But then otherwise, it's just can be kind of making connections, reaching out in different places for artists or editors, and so just kind of as each project happens, just kind of finding people who are qualified for it.
All right, so we're about to wrap up. So what is your newest publication and where can people find it to get it?
Sure. So we have a couple publications coming out in December. We have Jonah's Voyage to Atlantis, which will now be available, the second issue of Joan of Arc, and the fourth issue of the Finnian series.
Okay, excellent. And we'll put those links in the comments. And well, thank you very much, Philip Kosloski, easy for me to say, from Voyage Comics. Thank you for being my guest here on Creatively Christian. Join us next week for another Creatively Christian episode where we're going to introduce you to a new creative Christian.
Thank you.
May God's grace be with you.
Creatively Christian is a product of Theophany Media. You can find out more at theophanymedia.com. This show is hosted by Brandon Hollingsworth, Andrea Sandifer, Bill Brooks, and Lynn Baber. Our logo is by Bill Brooks. Our music is by Bill Brooks and Andrea Sandifer. To join our paid membership, the Creatively Christian Club, which includes exclusive content, networking events, and masterminds with expert creatives, just go to club.theophanymedia.com. Have a blessed day and keep on creating for our Lord.